So today I want to talk about how primarily XLM, from this guy's perspective, Captain XRP XLM, how XLM is uniquely positioned to be involved in much more of the cross-border payments and transactions uh, along with XRP, but I think XLM will be in much more than I was initially thinking it was before I began to go so far into what XLM and the SDF have actually done. So I came across this and I got more interested in it just because he put together a lot of good information. But I want to also explain how I got here again. So I did a video on ETHgate, XRP, and XLM, and it does have some really interesting connections there. I will put that link in the description here. And this guy called out this map and said that, and it's all moving to XLM. Well, I couldn't really find anything that was really pointing at XLM with any of the people involved in here. I didn't spend a ton of time on it, but I couldn't find anything that was obvious. And that map is here. But his other picture was talking about this project as well. So I don't know. I couldn't find that, but it didn't stop me. So this has been a thing in the XRP community for a while, where XRP has been called the Rising Phoenix, and that has come a lot from this magazine cover from the 80s, I think, and I believe it was on The Economist. But if you look at it more, there's not as much resemblance to XRP as there is XLM. And there are some really interesting coincidences that are shown here. And it says, get ready for a world currency. So I think that that's an interesting one, and that's a little bit more conspiratorial than I want to talk about today, at least. And as I have explained in the past, XLM is really involved with IBM and its WorldWire projects and Hyperledger as well, which the Hyperledger is extremely connected into all different kinds of projects out there. I won't expand on that today, but I do have more information on that I think will be really important to expand on a lot more as well. So just to remind everyone, the Hyperledger and WorldWire are basically connecting all kinds of things, and I've expanded on it with what XLM and SHX can do in terms of possibly even a CBDC, and I'll put that in the description as well, because I did explain that, and I expanded on it a whole lot too, if you're interested. I don't really want to talk about that, but it's just another example of how XLM is so connected, and especially as it ties in with XRP, which is what we will explain more here. Also, I guess another reminder, I didn't have these in the order that I probably should have, but that's okay. So because of IBM, XLM and SHX also have a lot of connections, and in all honesty, this thread itself provides a lot of information to expand upon, so I will probably just talk about that more at a different time. But I want to make all of these connections just to remind everyone that XLM and XRP, which will be the concentration of our conversation here, they are so interconnected into different projects and different kinds of efforts that touch pretty much everything in this payments space. So here's an example of that XLM and SHX CBDC. I'll put that link in here. And here's how SHX itself is trying to become a payment provider, not to mention how that would also line up very well for CBDCs over some smart contract applications, either on the EVM, the Ethereum virtual machine, or on what XLM now has through Horaban and their Protocol 20 update, which I just put out a video on that, and I will include that as well. So I found this guy really interesting, and he put these out over a period of time, but he caught my attention because he is talking about XRP, XLM, and CBDCs as well. So I went through his X page, and he has been checking out some different projects, and there's not really any direct mention of XRP. A lot of them really only talk about this DLT, which is a distributed ledger tech. So one exception is that Ripple's partner SBI over in Japan does directly call out Ripple and XRP, but that's because they are partners, and actually SBI is a part owner, I think 20%. So of course it would make sense there. But if you look into this project Cedar in phase 2, which is coming from the New York Fed, it explored the ability of a DLT to establish connectivity across heterogeneous simulated currency ledgers, reduce settlement risk, and decrease time. So it called that out here in this shot, and it explains it a little bit more here. And if you go into these projects he found, there's Project Dunbar, which looks like it's with Australia, Singapore, South Africa, and Malaysia. It is establishing a way to essentially create a CBDC there. And if we go to Project Rosalind, which I believe I talked about related to Quant, it's involved there as well. And the digital rupiah, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I would think that it's rupee or something like that. But it is involved with a digital ID there as well, and it calls out DLT. So this phrase has been very common, and I think especially over the last few years, because XRP has been much more connected with these CBDC kinds of projects. I think everyone just kind of assumed XRP would be the automatic in, and I do think that it will be one of the major components of this kind of a new financial system, but I don't think that it'll be the only one. So if you're interested in that, this project Cedar is easy to find, and it's in that link in his tweet as well. So to expand upon that, if the Australian central bank is working with XLM, how is XRP everything? It's only a connection. I am certainly not hating on XRP just because they have made more CBDC connections than XLM has at this point in time. But it's just really interesting that we have a very specific example. So a new report by Australia has found key opportunities within the launch of a CBDC. Their pilot involved key partners of XLM with the platform. So if you go to that news article here, you can see that they are working with a partner company of the SDF, which uses XLM. And I had it in here. Oh, yeah. So one of the SDF's major partners, Novatti, announced that it had been approved to join a pilot test. So XRP, therefore, is not the only X project out there that does have some ins with this CBDC end of things. So next one, Jed McCaleb, as I have made some connections with him in the past in between XRP and XLM, he was also involved in the whole MountGoau Bitcoin thing, which he is a very connected individual, obviously. And I believe that just with his involvement in all of these things, as soon as you've got multiple projects and multiple companies that are connected to one very connected person, it's not really a coincidence at that point, and it's normally a safe assumption to assume that there's a connection between all of those projects and companies as well, especially with XRP and XLM. They're both very concentrated on this cross-border payment space, which then has a tie-in with CBDCs as well. So the interesting thing about MountGoau is that 142,000 Bitcoin, which are worth about 4.3 billion at this point, as of October, which is just 2 days from now, they'll be put out into the actual market again, which should hurt the price of Bitcoin, in all honesty. I am not a Bitcoin fan. I think the only proof of work thing that I'm even moderately interested in right now is probably Caspa, and I will put out some information on that as well. But that's just not really what I'm interested in. I don't think that that's adoptable for these kinds of financial technology projects and applications. So now he's expanding into IBM as well. So specifically the Hyperledger, which we have talked about a lot. Now, I hadn't found any really obvious connections here, but I found it really interesting that as of, I believe it was 2019, Ripple and XRP are also involved in the IBM Hyperledger network as well. So if you go on to ask what is it, which I have some example maps and everything that I will expand upon, but it'll have to be at a different time. But essentially, the Hyperledger is a collection of open source projects created to support the development of DLT. It aims to create framework to make these things actually happen. And then if you go to the next one, it will include a consensus layer, which just confirms all of the transactions, a smart contract layer as well, which I believe was primarily hooked up on the EVM. Don't hold me to that, but it also has a lot of tie-in with XLM, which now has smart contract capability with the Protocol 20 upgrade, which is entirely on the XLM chain. And then an API to make it interoperable, and identity management as well, which we talked about is a primary concern for all of these central banks and their CBDCs. So if you here is the proof. So Ripple joins the Hyperledger Consortium as of 2019. So that was really interesting for me, and I will use this to expand upon the whole Hyperledger WorldWire network at a different time. But that was really interesting for me because it just goes more into this whole tie-in that I continue to make with XLM and XRP. So here's a couple of videos, but you don't really need to watch those. I think that probably the one to watch would probably be this XRP Hyperledger overview, but it's like 20 minutes, I think, and I just don't want that here just because that's a long time. So I would highly suggest to go check that out. But what is the IBM Hyperledger? Well, we just went through that, but it has a lot of information out there if you are more interested. So why is the Hyperledger Fabric so important? There is a living segmentation of the evolving chain and DLT space. Its creation was inspired by the growing complexity of this emerging market, which XLM and XRP have really made a lot of work to capture that early. But all of the innovation happening outside the core, and the innovation happening outside the core DLT development area. This reflects the complexity, blah, blah, blah. Okay, yeah, that wasn't as important as I initially thought it was. But here is probably the more important part, which is if you look at the Interledger Foundation, you get XLM and Algo and also XRP. So if we briefly look through here, so obviously we've got IBM. There are multiple different kinds of Hyperledger projects, I guess, but we've got Ethereum in here. We have all kinds of different service providers, Quant as well. And I believe on the next one, it concentrates on these a little bit more. So you've got Corda, which is associated with R3 oftentimes. You have Algo here, HBAR, IOTA, XLM, Sol. I'm not seeing the XRP thing, but you've got Fetch AI, which is a crypto project. You've got Chainlink and Polkadot, Polygon, Cosmos. This one I know the sign, I just don't know that name off of the top of my head. But this is a really good way to show how connected the IBM Hyperledger actually is, which was provided in an overview here. So you've got Avalanche, XDC, DAG over here. You've got JP Morgan, HBAR. I mean, all of these things are all of the projects that I routinely talk about and tie together over and over again. And I'm not trying to say that I'm right. I'm just trying to say that these core projects, XRP, XLM, HBAR, XDC, DAG as well, they're so interconnected. Oh, and then right here we've got XRP, right here we've got LCX, which is an interesting one. So it is just really eye-opening for me, because the more that I check in to this, the more that I find, and it's just over and over again. So, in his opinion, all of the money is in Hyperledger DLT. Why? Because we have XRP, we have XLM, we have IBM, everything else that it connects to. So I I am beginning to get convinced more and more that XRP and XLM will be the two who do a lot of these cross-border payments and CBDCs, and I don't really care what the percentage is for each of them, because they are because I own a considerable amount of each, in all honesty. But here is the last one, right? We're back to Hyperledger, but we introduce WorldWire, which I have talked about in the past as well. So we talk a little bit more about the industries here and Hyperledger Fabric, what tools it has, and how it can be applied as well. But essentially, IBM is really working off of the XLM network at this point. They essentially use that chain to conduct all of their crypto things over WorldWire. And just because WorldWire is so interconnected with the Hyperledger as well, it just goes to show that XLM has much more of a market presence than I initially thought it did, just because XRP got all of the news, and it had such a much more active community as well. So I don't think that any of this was particularly new information, just because I have expanded on so many different parts of this. However, it did open my eyes to the Hyperledger involving XRP, and it did just kind of further confirm that I am in fact making the right kinds of connections here, and I hope it gives you a lot more confidence in not only XRP and XLM, but SHX, HBAR, Algo, Quant, XDC, all of the ones that I hold. And I have become more and more confident in that. And as we approach 2024 and 2025, when things should line up to actually have a bull run, I am very confident that I will be rewarded for actually holding these. And I'm continuing to hold those, just because I am learning more and more about how valuable they really are because of their connection.